I said no to a mafia boss in a room full of crystal and candlelight, and 24 hours later I was in a police interrogation room, staring at photographs of a burning warehouse with my name on the deed. That's the neat version. It skips the ring I didn't wear, the brother who stopped answering his phone, and the quiet certainty in Cassian Vale's eyes when I refused him. It skips the part where I thought no was still a word that could protect me. If someone had told me I'd become the mafia boss's obsession, I would have laughed, wiped my hands on my apron, and gone back to counting the restaurant's receipts. I was a junior accountant with a second job and a talent for cleaning up other people's messes. Men like him existed in gossip, not in front of me. But last night, with the city lights flooding through the glass and his men stationed at every exit, I understood something simple and terrible. I had never been outside his world. I'd just been surviving in the forgotten corners of it. It started, like most of my trouble, with my father's debts. La Sirena was the kind of place where people ordered dessert wine without checking the price. White tablecloths, low music, a view of the river. Cassian sat alone at a corner table as if the whole place were an annex of his office. The maitre d' hovered a few feet away. Conversations bent around him without ever quite touching. I stood there for a heartbeat, my hands damp inside borrowed silk gloves. Miss Hale. His voice reached me before his gaze did, low and precise. You're late. I'm 2 minutes early. I made my feet move. For anyone else, that would be considered punctual. He looked up from his glass. Up close, it was obvious why people called him the king of the city's underbelly, with a kind of reluctant awe. Dark eyes that missed nothing. A face built on angles and control, handsome without warmth. The faintest scar marked one corner of his mouth. His suit was faultless, but what struck me was the stillness. He sat the way loaded guns rest, quiet only because no one had pulled the trigger yet. Exactly, he said. 2 minutes you could have been mine. The word slid under my skin. I sat because there were men at the bar watching me in the mirror and another at the door, and because walking back out would have been a different kind of surrender. Do you always talk like that? I asked, as if people are objects you've misplaced. I don't misplace what belongs to me, he said. Not for long. I don't belong to you. Not yet. A waiter appeared, filled my glass with red wine I hadn't ordered, vanished again. Cassian's attention never left my face. The last time your family crossed my desk, he said, it was attached to a man who owed me more than he could count. My father, I said. He's dead. Debts don't die, Cassian replied. They change hands. I'd rehearsed speeches on the way here. Offers, compromises. Rational, careful words that might keep Eli out of this. They evaporated under his stare. How much did he owe you? I forced out. Enough that others would be interested in collecting a piece, he said. Enough that you should not be living in a building with a faulty lock and pretending no one knows where you sleep. The fact that he knew about the lock made my pulse stutter. I'll pay it, I said. I've been paying. I can take extra shifts, sell the car. You've been paying off the loudest creditors, he said. The ones who send men to bang on your door. I don't send men to bang. I send lawyers, accountants, paper. I haven't seen any lawyers, I snapped. He smiled faintly. You work for one of my shell firms, Mara. You see my people every day. You just call them by other names. I froze. Carswell and Low isn't clean, he finished. Of course it isn't. But it's tidy. You make it tidier. You're efficient, loyal, exact. I appreciate that. I'm not loyal to you. You're loyal to your brother. His gaze sharpened. That's close enough. Eli's name wasn't spoken, but I heard him in the pause between words. 19, studying engineering, pretending not to notice how many nights I came home too late and too tired. The only person left whose faith in me hadn't been eroded by years of my father's damage. What do you want? I asked. Cassian placed a small black velvet box on the table between us and rested 2 fingers on it. A solution, he said, for both of us. I don't marry strangers, I replied, because the alternative was panic. His eyes didn't flicker. I'm not a stranger to you, Mara. You've spent the last month learning my name, my businesses, my history. You know more about me than most people I work with. That isn't the same as knowing you. It's enough. The box sat there like a threat. Here is my proposal, he said. You marry me. Your father's debt disappears. The men who think your brother is collateral learn he is under my protection. No one touches him without consequence. You continue doing what you already do, keeping numbers honest. Only this time, you do it for me, deliberately, instead of as a byproduct of fear. And in return? I asked, though I already knew. In return, he said, you stand beside me when I need you, and you do not stand against me. You're asking me to become an accessory. I'm asking you to acknowledge that you already are one. His tone never rose. Your firm launders money. Your restaurant moves cash. You can live in denial, or you can step into the place you've already been positioned and gain something from it. By marrying you. Yes. The word sat between us like a physical weight. I imagined. The ring on my finger, Eli's tuition paid, the calls from creditors silenced. I imagined waking up every day in a house I didn't choose, beside a man whose calm hid violence, and knowing every kindness he showed my brother came with hooks in it. No, I said. The refusal surprised even me by how steady it sounded. Cassian studied me for a long, measured moment. The restaurant faded to a hum at the edges of my awareness. Think carefully, he said at last. I have. I'm not an asset you can acquire with the right price. For a woman who lives by numbers, he murmured, you underestimate the cost of defiance. I'll take my chances. Silence stretched. Then he pushed the box closer to me. When you change your mind, he said, wear what's inside. Come to my house. You won't need to call ahead. I won't change my mind. Everyone does, he replied. Eventually. The city has a way of teaching people what they're worth. He stood, left cash under the bill, and walked out. His men folded around him at the door, a shadow that moved when he moved. No threats spoken. None needed. I didn't open the box until I was home, alone in our cramped apartment. The ring was simple. Platinum, one clear stone that caught the weak kitchen light. Inside the band, in tiny letters, was a name. Vale. I closed the box and shoved it into the back of the highest cupboard, behind a jar with nothing in it but dust. Eli came home an hour later, hair damp from the rain, shoulders hunched from carrying too many books and too much hope. He kissed my cheek, stole leftovers from the fridge, and never noticed the way my hand hovered near the cupboard door the whole time. We were safe, I told myself. Saying no was allowed. Even in his world it had to be. The morning proved me wrong. Before we continue the story, Please drop a comment telling me where you're watching this from, and don't forget to subscribe to Mara's Betrayal. The knocking dragged me out of a shallow, restless sleep. 3 hard, precise knocks. A pause. 3 more. Not Eli. He would have tried his key first, would have called my name. I pulled on jeans and a sweater, heart beating too fast, and opened the door on the security chain. 2 officers filled the hallway, uniforms dark against the peeling paint. Radios hissed softly at their shoulders. Behind them, Mrs. Alvarez from 3B hovered with a laundry basket, eyes wide. "Mara Hale?" the taller officer asked. "Yes." "Open the door, please." "Do you have a warrant?" I heard the tremor in my own voice. "We just need to ask some questions." "About what?" "Open the door, Miss Hale." The chain rattled as my fingers fumbled. I let them in. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, every flaw exposed. The sagging couch, the chipped table, the mug Eli had left in the sink. "Is your brother home?" the other officer asked, glancing toward the hallway. "No, he left early. He has an exam." "What time did he leave?" 6:30. We had coffee. He was nervous." "Why are you—" The taller officer's attention snagged on the cupboard door I hadn't closed all the way. He reached up, pulled it open. The black velvet box sat near the edge, plain as a confession. He took it down, flipped it open. The ring caught the weak morning light, throwing a shard of brightness across the table. "Expensive," he said. "Congratulations." I'm not engaged," I said quickly. "It was a gift." "From who?" Saying the name felt like walking into a trap I could see and still couldn't avoid. "Cassian Vale." The 2 officers exchanged a look so brief I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching for exactly that. "When did you get this?" the shorter one asked. "Last night." "In what context?" "At a restaurant. He made me an offer. I refused." The words sounded ridiculous out loud, fragile things in the stale air. The taller officer shut the box and set it on the table as if it were something that might explode. "Miss Hale," he said, "we need you to come with us to answer some questions." "You still haven't told me why." "There was a fire down at the docks a few hours ago," he replied. "Warehouse 42. It's registered to a shell company. That company is registered to you." "That's not possible," I said. "I don't own a warehouse." "You do on paper." He pulled a folded page from his pocket, tapped a printed line where my name sat, too solid to deny. "Daniel Hale transferred it to you before he died." My father's signature was there too, jagged and familiar. "A fire," I repeated. "Why are you here then? Shouldn't you be at the docks?" "2 bodies were found inside," he said. "They'd been shot before the fire started. One had a key tag in his pocket. Melted plastic, but the writing survived." He held up a plastic evidence bag. Inside, distorted by heat, was a piece of metal with a company name printed on it, and beneath that, in black marker, one neat word. "Paid." The handwriting might as well have been my fingerprint. "That's not—" "I didn't write that," I whispered. "It matches samples from your bank forms," he said. "We can get an expert to say so on the record if you'd like." Cold crept up the inside of my arms. Somewhere behind us, Mrs. Alvarez's door closed with a quiet click. "I have never been to that warehouse," I said. "Then you'll be eager to help us understand how your name and your handwriting ended up there," the officer replied. "Get your coat, Miss Hale." "I need to call my brother." "We've tried his number." His partner checked his notes. "Straight to voicemail. We'll keep trying." Eli never turned his phone off. Even in class, he kept it on silent but open, as if the world might end in the 15 minutes he wasn't checking it. "He's probably in the exam hall," I said. "They make you get your coat," the officer repeated, gentler this time. I glanced at the ring box. For a heartbeat, I imagined opening it, sliding the ring onto my finger in front of them, seeing whatever invisible gears turned when Cassian's mark was visible. Some part of me believed there was a difference between being close to his orbit and being visibly claimed by it. I left it where it was. The ride to the station was short and full of silence. I watched the city slide past in fragments. The bakery where Eli and I sometimes split a stale croissant near closing. The billboard for the college he was so determined to attend. The river knifing through the buildings like a dark scar. The precinct smelled like old coffee and tired anger. They led me down a corridor into a small room with a metal table and a camera in the corner. A detective in a rumpled shirt sat across from me, opened a file with my name on it, and read out my life like a list. 24, junior accountant, legal guardian of one younger brother. No criminal record. He looked up. Clean. Is that a problem? I tried for dry. It came out thin. In my experience, no one is clean, he said. Some people are just better at hiding the stains. He slid a photograph across the table. The warehouse burned in frozen orange, its roof caved in, flames licking at the night. This was yours, he said. I didn't even know it existed. Your signature suggests otherwise. My father forged signatures when he was desperate, I said. You can have it analyzed. We will. He laid another photograph down, the warped key tag inside a plastic sleeve, the melted letters, the word paid written in my careful script. How do you explain this? He asked. I can't, I said, because the alternative was to start screaming and never stop. He watched me for a moment, then leaned back. Who else has access to your handwriting, your documents, your files? I work with numbers, I said. You should ask my boss, not me. Ask. The door behind me opened with a soft click. Detective. A new voice, smooth and controlled, cut through the stale air. This interview is over. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. The temperature of the room seemed to change, the fluorescent light suddenly too bright. But I turned anyway. Cassian Vale stood in the doorway, dark suit immaculate, coat draped over his arm. He looked exactly as he had the night before, collected, self-contained, completely certain he belonged wherever he chose to stand. His gaze found mine. Whatever he saw there, fear, fury, the edges of disbelief, registered as calmly as numbers on a page. On whose authority? The detective demanded. Cassian smiled without warmth. On the authority that keeps your precinct funded and your overtime approved. Call whichever name you like. They all trace back to me. He stepped fully into the room, let the door swing shut behind him. The click sounded like a lock sliding into place. Hello, Mara, he said. I told you refusing my protection would have consequences. My throat tightened. Did you burn a warehouse just to prove a point? You're asking the wrong question, he replied, setting his coat on the sack of the empty chair beside me. The right one is this. He leaned on the table, close enough that I could see the darker ring around his pupils, the steady calculation there. How long? Cassian asked softly. Do you want to keep pretending you still have a choice? Cassian didn't wait for the detective's permission. He stepped closer, his shadow spilling across the metal table like ink. His presence filled the room, quiet, self-assured, absolute. I could feel the shift in authority, the detective's irritation, the stagnant air, the unspoken threat that came with Cassian's calm. He lifted the evidence bag containing the melted key tag, studied it as if it were an item in his personal collection rather than a link to 2 murders. "You're wasting her time," he said, "and mine." The detective bristled. "We have questions." "No," Cassian cut in softly. "You have instructions, given to you by men who answer to me. And those men keep you paid well enough to pretend you don't know that." His tone never rose, but the detective's jaw clenched. A bead of sweat glimmered on his temple. Cassian straightened and looked at me. "Stand up." The command slid through the room like the edge of a blade. He didn't touch me, didn't raise a hand, didn't say please, but my body reacted before my mind could protest. I pushed my chair back and rose. The detective moved as if to stop me. Cassian turned his head, just slightly. A warning. No threat. No violence. Just that shift in his gaze, a different depth, a quiet calculation that promised ruin. The detective froze. "Good." Cassian reached for my coat where it hung on the back of the chair. "We're leaving." Leaving. As if I had been waiting for him. As if he were rescuing me instead of dragging me into something far worse. "I'm not going anywhere with you," I said, but the words trembled and betrayed me. "You are," he replied, "because the alternative is staying here and letting them decide what to do with you once they realize you're the perfect scapegoat." He wasn't wrong. The detective cleared his throat. "Miss Hale can leave only if she is not under detainment." "She isn't," Cassian said, "and she won't be." He placed my coat around my shoulders, an intimate gesture entirely at odds with the cold, clinical way he spoke. For a moment, the fabric cocooned me in warmth that I didn't trust. Warmth that felt like the first step into something irreversible. I should have pulled away. I didn't. His hand brushed my back lightly as he guided me toward the door. That single touch said everything. He wasn't asking me to follow him. He fully expected that I would. And I did. Once in the hallway, he walked beside me, not touching me, but close enough that the air between us narrowed. Officers stepped aside with subtle deference. A sergeant pretended not to notice us passing. Doors seemed to open before we reached them. He didn't look at me until we exited the precinct into the bright, bleak morning. The sky was the gray of unspoken truths. A black car waited at the curb. One of his men opened the back door. Cassian turned to me. "You're frightened," he said. "Good. Fear keeps you alive." "You think you're helping me," I said. "But you're the reason I need help." I expected anger. Instead, something flickered across his expression. Something unreadable, a single crack in a wall I thought was seamless. "I warned you what would happen if you refused me." "And did you set me up just to prove yourself right?" "No," he said calmly. "I don't need to manufacture your enemies. You already have enough of them, including the ones your father left behind." "My father," I swallowed. "My father didn't leave anything except scars." Cassian opened the car door wider. "You've been pretending his sins were smaller than they were," he said. "It's time to stop." I didn't move. "The warehouse," I said. "The murders. You know something." "I know everything." His eyes darkened. "Including the fact that someone went through a great deal of effort to place your name where mine should have been." The street suddenly felt cold. What does that mean? It means someone wants you to take the fall for something they want to hide from me. He inclined his head toward the car. Get in, Mara, before the next blow lands. I hesitated. Fear pressed against my ribs, but so did something else. Anger, confusion, and the growing realization that staying with the police meant being devoured slowly. Going with him meant risking a different kind of death. A faster one. But at least he was honest about the danger. I climbed into the car. The door shut behind me with a heavy, final click. The kind of sound that made a choice feel like a sentence. Cassian slid in beside me. His presence filled the space instantly, a cold gravity I could feel even without turning my head. The car pulled away with a silent lurch. We didn't speak for a long moment. I stared out the window, watched the buildings blur. My fingers dug into the seat. At last, I said, "Why me?" "Because someone wants to hurt you," he answered. "And that benefits you how?" "Because," he said, "when people try to destroy what I want, I don't forgive. I devour." The word sent a shiver down my spine. He watched me with that same unblinking certainty. "You should have said yes last night." "And then what?" I whispered. "My life would have been safe?" "No," he said simply, "but it would have been predictable. Your enemies would have known the consequences." "And now?" "Now," he murmured, "they think you stand alone." He leaned back slightly, as if evaluating the weight of the truth. "You won't be alone again," he added quietly. Not a promise. A verdict. I looked away before he could read my expression. We drove across half the city, deeper into the industrial district where the buildings huddled close, windows barred, alleys narrow. This was the area people pretended didn't exist. The car turned into a gated yard. A steel door rolled open. Armed men stood on either side, wearing expressions carved from stone. Cassian exited first, then looked back at me. "Come." The warehouse, this one in perfect condition, smelled of metal and oil. A long table in the center held scattered files, surveillance photos, and maps. "Sit," he said. I stayed standing. He didn't repeat himself. Instead, he leaned forward on the table and selected a single folder. He handed it to me. My name was printed on the front. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Me leaving work. Me carrying groceries. Me sitting at the cafe near the river. Me handing Eli a bag of textbooks. Me unlocking our apartment door. Each one stamped with a date and time. "You've been followed for months," Cassian said. "Long before I made my proposal." My heartbeat stuttered. Why didn't I notice? "Because they were very good," he replied. "And because you were never looking. You thought danger made noise." I swallowed hard, staring at my own face frozen in every ordinary moment. A blurred figure appeared in the background of several photos. A man in a nondescript jacket. I'd never seen him. Not in any conscious way. "Who is he?" I asked. "A problem." Cassian's expression hardened. "One I will deal with." I looked up sharply. "Deal with how?" His tone was flat. Permanently. "No, you can't just... can't," he echoed softly. "Mara, you still don't understand. Someone orchestrated last night's events and this morning's accusations. Someone positioned you as a liability. They want you vulnerable." "Why me?" My voice cracked. "Because you're tied to me now." I went still. "I said no." "You said no," he agreed, "but that doesn't erase the fact that I asked. In my world, intention is visible, and someone thought I cared enough about your answer to weaponize it." The idea punched the air from my lungs. "I don't understand," I whispered. "You will." He nodded at the chair again. Sit. I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I asked the question I had been avoiding since the moment he stepped into the interrogation room. Did you know my father? Cassian's gaze sharpened. Yes. A pulse of dread rippled through me. How well? Well enough to know he was a desperate man, Cassian replied. And well enough to know he hid things from you. What things? Before he answered, he stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until the space between us thinned to tension. He owed more than money, Cassian said. He owed allegiance. And when he broke it, he left you to bear the cost. I felt something inside me splinter. My father never mentioned any of this, I said. Of course not. He wanted you ignorant. Ignorance felt like protection to him. And to you? I asked, quietly. I prefer you aware, he said. Fearless, sharp. He paused. Honesty suits you better than naivety. A breath caught in my throat. Suddenly, without warning, he reached past me and closed the folder. The sound of it shutting made me flinch. Mara, he said, someone went through extraordinary lengths to place you in danger. I am going to find them. And when you do? I forced myself to ask. His reply was quiet. Too quiet. They will understand what it means to provoke me. Silence coiled between us like smoke. If you're still watching the story till now, drop a comment so I know you're with me. Cassian moved across the table, sorting through photographs, maps, printouts. All were threads of a web I didn't yet understand. You think someone is framing me? I said. I know someone is. And you're helping because... He looked up, studied me for a long moment. Then, because you matter. The word struck me like a blow. To the investigation? I asked, hating how weak it sounded. To me, he corrected. My pulse stumbled. Fury rose to cover the fear. You don't know me. I know enough to act. You think possession is the same thing as care? No, Cassian said. Possession is control. Care is motive. I have both. I stepped back. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. He came toward me again, measured, unhurried, inevitable. I backed against the cold metal of the table. You're manipulating me, I whispered. If I wanted to manipulate you, he murmured, you wouldn't see it coming. His hand lifted, slowly, giving me time to stop him. But I didn't move. His fingertips brushed my jaw, feather light. The touch was colder than I expected. Your world is burning, Mara, he said quietly. Let me be the one who pulls you out of the fire. Or pushes me into a different one, I said. A faint smile curved his mouth. Not warm, not kind, but real. You're not as breakable as you think. The warehouse door suddenly banged open. One of his men strode inside, face grave. Boss, he said, we found something. Cassian's hand dropped from my face instantly. The shift from intimate to lethal was instantaneous, like watching a blade being unsheathed. What? Cassian asked. The man hesitated, then handed him a phone. Cassian skimmed the screen, his eyes sharpened. Darkness gathered around him like a storm closing in. Mara, he said. Look. He held out the phone. My breath shattered. The screen showed a live video feed. Eli, my brother, bound to a chair, duct tape across his mouth, terror in his eyes, and behind him, a shadowed figure holding a gun to his head. A distorted voice filtered through the speakers. You should have worn the ring. The phone slipped from my fingers. Cassian caught it before it hit the ground. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The world narrowed to a single, unbearable truth. Someone had taken my brother. Cassian looked at me, and for the first time, the ruthless control in his gaze cracked. Not with fear, but with the promise of vengeance. "I'm going to get him back," he said. "But you need to understand something before we begin." His voice lowered to a lethal whisper. "This happened because you said no." The floor seemed to tilt. "And now," he continued, "your answer is no longer a word you're allowed to give." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over me. "Mara," he said slowly, "your life changes now." The lights flickered above us. Then the screen on the phone flickered too, and the man behind Eli pressed the gun harder against his skull. Cassian's jaw hardened. "Mara," he said, "I need you to listen very carefully." And the video abruptly cut to black. When the video cut out, it felt like someone had torn a piece of reality away and left a raw edge behind. For a moment, no one moved. The warehouse, with its steel beams and scattered papers, felt unreal, like a set someone had forgotten to dismantle. The only real thing was the afterimage of Eli's eyes, wide and bright with terror, burned into the inside of my skull. I realized I was shaking only when Cassian's voice cut through the silence. "Breathe." The word scraped against something in me. "My brother." The sound that came out of my throat wasn't language. I forced my lungs to work. "Where is he? Where did they take him?" "We're going to find out." Cassian lifted the phone again, fingers steady. "Luca." The man who had brought him the phone stepped closer. His expression was tight, jaw clenched, gaze flicking between me and the dark screen. "Yes, boss." "Trace it," Cassian said. "Now." "It was a live feed running through an encrypted relay," Luca replied. "It'll take," Cassian cut him off with a look sharp enough to slice. "I don't care how difficult it is. I care how long it will take you to stop telling me it's difficult." "Yes, boss." Luca swallowed, already moving, barking orders into a radio as he strode toward a bank of computers at the far end of the warehouse. I stared at the blank phone screen. The reflection that stared back didn't look like me. My skin looked too pale, my eyes too dark. My hair, hastily twisted back that morning, had fallen loose around my face. "I need to call the police," I said. Cassian turned his head slowly. "No." "You don't understand," I choked out. "They'll kill him. They're clearly not afraid of you, so what difference does it make if—" "They're very afraid of me," he said quietly. "That's why they took your brother instead of coming to my door. He is leverage, and the police are noise. They don't bring solutions. They bring visibility. You will not invite them into this." "You don't get to decide that," I snapped, even as my knees trembled. His gaze hardened. "You are standing in my warehouse, holding my evidence, watching your brother being used as a message meant for me. You don't get to pretend you're outside this anymore." My hands balled into fists. "Eli is my family. And now," he said, "he is my responsibility." No, he isn't." His voice dropped. "He became my responsibility the moment someone took him to reach me. You don't have to like that. You just have to live long enough to see what I do with it." I stared at him, searching for some crack in his certainty and finding nothing but iron. "I don't trust you," I whispered. "I'm not asking for your trust," he replied. "I'm asking for your obedience. Right now, they are the same thing." The cruelty of the words hit harder than if he had shouted. I sank into the nearest chair because my legs finally decided they were done pretending. Cassian pocketed the phone and crossed the space between us. He didn't crouch or soften himself to meet my eyeline. He simply stood before me, an unmovable line cutting through the chaos. "Think," he said. "If you were them, what would you do now?" "I'm not them," I muttered. "You grew up with a gambler for a father," he replied. "You've cleaned up the wreckage his choices left. You understand leverage better than you admit." I looked past him, to the table, to the scattered files with my name and my life laid bare. Photos of me unaware. Dates, times. Leverage. "If I wanted to control you," I said slowly, "I'd threaten something you couldn't walk away from." I swallowed. "Something you'd burn your own rules for." "Good." His voice softened just enough to slip under my skin. "They've taken your brother. That means they expect you to move, to panic, to make mistakes. They expect you to come," I whispered. "They hope I'll come blind." He straightened. "I won't." He turned to his men. "Secure the perimeter. No one in or out without my word. Luca, I want that feed traced. Even a partial location, cell tower, building profile, ambient noise. I want everything." "On it," Luca called, already typing. I pushed myself to my feet. "What do you need from me?" I asked, hating how small the question sounded. Cassian looked at me like he'd been waiting for those words. "Everything," he said. "I need every secret your father dragged you through. Every debt, every name, every moment you woke up in the dark with your heart pounding because you heard a car door slam and thought it was the sound of your past catching up." I went cold. "You think this is about him?" I said. "This is always about him," Cassian murmured. "Men like your father don't die clean. They leave long shadows." I swallowed. "I thought when he overdosed, that was the end of it." "People like him don't end," Cassian said. "They scatter. They fragment. They break into pieces that keep cutting long after the body is buried." He gestured to the table. "Show me where the pieces cut you." We went through my life like an autopsy. Not the visible parts, the degree, the job, the rent payments. Those were surface. Cassian wanted the rot underneath. The nights my father disappeared and came back with blood on his knuckles and glittering promises on his tongue. The morning my mother left and never returned, slipping out before the sun rose, leaving a note I'd never been able to read without shaking. He made me name the creditors I remembered, the men who came to the door, the ones who waited in parked cars at the end of the block, the voices on the phone that called my father friend while threatening his fingers. I'd spent years trying to forget those details. Now I pulled them up one by one, each memory a shard of glass in my mouth. When I faltered, Cassian filled in the parts I didn't know. "Salvatore Caro," he said when I described a man with a silver watch and an easy laugh that never reached his eyes. "My rival's fixer. He handled collections." "Rival," I repeated. "Caro. He's the one with the dock network." "He was," Cassian corrected. "He's dead." "How?" "My bullet," he said mildly. 2 years ago." I sucked in a breath. "And before you ask, no, this isn't him. The dead rarely stage kidnappings, but his absence left a vacuum. Vacuums attract ambitious men." "Ambitious men who know my name," I said. Cassian nodded once. Luca called out from the computer bank, "Boss, I've got something." We crossed the warehouse. Lines of code poured down the screens. One window showed the last frame of the video. Eli's face, frozen mid-flinch. "The feed bounced through 3 relays," Luca said. "Encrypted like I thought." But whoever set it up was sloppy with the exit node. They rerouted through a private network registered to a logistics firm. Whose? Cassian asked. Luca hesitated. Caro Freight. The name slammed into the air like a gunshot. I thought you said he was dead, I said. He is, Cassian replied. His eyes darkened, gaze fixed on the screen. But his infrastructure isn't. It was carved up, sold, claimed. This firm changed hands 6 months ago. He tapped the screen. Who owns it now? Luca typed fast. Shell company, then another. And another. But the trail ends in a familiar place. He looked up. Vitale Group. I don't know who that is, I said. Cassian's expression sharpened into something lethal. I do. He stepped back from the screen, shoulders held too still. Vitale Group is run by Angelo Vitale, he said. Old money, old grudges. He likes clean fronts and dirty edges. We've disagreed over territory. How badly? I asked. His answer was quiet. Badly enough that if he's taken your brother, it's not just because of your father. My mouth went dry. Then why? Cassian's eyes met mine. There was no softness in them, no apology. Because of you, he said. I shook my head. I've never met him. I didn't even know his name. You don't have to meet a man to become useful to him, Cassian said. All you had to do was sit in a restaurant across from me while I placed a ring in front of you and asked you to say yes. Someone saw that. Someone decided they'd rather you said yes to them than to me. You think Angelo wants to marry me? The words came out strangled. The idea was grotesque, absurd. Cassian's mouth thinned. No. Men like Angelo don't need vows. They need leverage. He wants you as proof he can touch what I claim. I didn't accept you, I said. I said no. That doesn't matter. His voice was iron. I set you apart by asking. That was enough. I wanted to scream at him, tell him this was his fault, that if he had never looked at me, never said my name, never placed that ring in front of me, Eli would be in his classroom right now, bored and safe. But I knew what Cassian would say, that the people watching me, the creditors circling the warehouse in my name, the key tag with my handwriting, all existed before his offer. My father's shadow was long. Angelo had simply chosen the neatest angle from which to step out of it. The warehouse door clanged again. Another of Cassian's men entered, breath fogging in the chill air. We've got eyes on one of Vitale's trucks, he said, unmarked, heading south out of the city. The plates match one of the shell fleets registered to Caro Freight. How close? Cassian asked. 15 minutes ahead of our nearest car. Maybe less if traffic favors us. Follow, Cassian said. At distance. I want to know where they nest before I start tearing wings off. Yes, boss. The man left as quickly as he'd come. I gripped the back of a chair until my fingers hurt. You're going after them, I said. Of course. I'm coming. No, he said instantly. Yes. My voice cracked, but I didn't back down. I won't sit in this warehouse while my brother is God knows where. I've done that my whole life. Waited in small rooms while men like you decided what happened to us. Not this time. His gaze swept over me, weighing, measuring, cutting. It's not a place for you, he said. You don't have the stomach for what will happen when we find him. That's not your decision to make. His jaw tightened. You think I haven't seen ugly things? I whispered. I have watched my father gamble away money we didn't have to men who carved their names into him, just to remind him who owned his nights. I have cleaned blood out of our bathroom sink and pretended it was nosebleeds. I have answered doors you should be grateful I can't forget. Don't talk to me about stomach. For the first time since I'd met him, Cassian looked impressed. A shadow of something like approval crossed his face. You're shaking, he said. I'm still standing, I shot back. He exhaled once, slowly, as if releasing a decision he already knew he would make. You'll stay in the car, he said. You will not move without my command. If you disobey, I will drag you back myself. If dragging me back means leaving Eli there, I won't leave him, Cassian said, and there was such fierce certainty in the words that my protest died. He reached into his pocket, and when his hand came back up, it held something black and small. For one wild second I thought it was another ring. It was a phone. Slim, matte, anonymous. You'll use this, he said. Not your own. Your number is compromised. My number? I frowned. You received debt calls for your father, he said. From creditors, collectors, and threats. Some of those numbers you saved. Others saved you. All of them built a pattern. Angelo has seen that pattern. He used it to trace you. We sever that connection now. He snapped his fingers. Another man appeared at my shoulder with a metal tray. Your phone, Cassian said. I hesitated, then pulled it from my pocket. It felt heavier than it should have. The cracked screen, the cheap case with a faded sticker Eli had left one night as a joke. The man took it, placed it on the tray, and left without a word. Something in my chest twisted. Cassian watched me. You mourn that more than you mourn your father. It's my lifeline to Eli, I said. Not anymore, he replied. Now I am your lifeline to him. I hated how true that felt. He gestured toward the warehouse's far end. There's a room there. Change. Change into what? I asked. You're wearing panic, he said. Wear something that says you've chosen this. I stiffened. Chosen what? Me. The word hung there. He didn't mean marriage. He meant alignment. I haven't, I whispered. You're here, he replied. You're walking into this with me. That's a choice. I wanted to argue, to insist I had been pushed, trapped, cornered. But the door to the outside world had been behind me. I'd come deeper instead. What do I wear? I repeated. He looked at me for a heartbeat, then said, Dark. Nothing that stands out. Nothing that can be grabbed easily. And he reached into his coat and set the black velvet box on the table. The ring. I stared at it as if it might sprout teeth. No, I said. Mara, he said quietly, they took your brother because they think you're unclaimed. Because they thought they could risk my anger and still walk away. They won't think that if you walk into that room wearing my name. You think a piece of metal on my hand will protect me? I think it will confuse them, he said. Confusion buys us seconds. Seconds keep people alive. My throat tightened. If I wear it, I said slowly, am I agreeing to anything? His eyes held mine. You're agreeing not to die. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters right now. I stared at the box. The last time I'd touched it, I'd shoved it into a cupboard, pretending that out of sight meant out of power. Now it sat between us like a thin line between survival and something much worse. My hand shook as I picked it up. I opened the lid. The ring caught the warehouse's cold light, stone flashing once like an eye. My father's debts, Eli's terror, Angelo Vitale's shadow, Cassian's warded calm. I slid the ring onto my finger. It was heavier than it looked. Cassian watched the motion with a focus that made the air feel thinner. Good, he said softly. Now change. We leave in 10 minutes. The room at the back of the warehouse was small but clean. A metal locker, a narrow bench, a mirror bolted to the wall. A stack of clothes had been placed on the bench. Black jeans, a fitted shirt, boots that looked sturdy enough to run in. Of course he had my size. Men like him collected details the way other people collected souvenirs. I changed with stiff, mechanical movements. My old clothes folded on the bench looked like something shed from a different life. A girl who worried about rent and exam fees and grocery sales, not kidnappings and rival crime families. When I lifted my head to the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. The dark clothes made my skin look paler, my eyes deeper. My hair, pulled back into a tight braid, exposed the stark lines of my face. The ring flashed on my finger when I moved. Mine and not mine at the same time. I pressed my palm flat against the mirror. "You're going to get him back," I whispered. "Whatever it costs." My reflection didn't answer. When I stepped back into the main space, the warehouse was humming with movement. Men loading weapons with practiced efficiency, securing vests, checking radios. Cars idled outside, engines low and ready. Cassian stood at the center of it all, a dark axis around which everything spun. His gaze found me instantly. He didn't say anything at first, just looked. My skin prickled under that scrutiny, but I held his gaze. It felt important not to look away. He stepped closer, eyes dropping briefly to the ring on my finger. The slightest easing of tension in his shoulders was the only sign that it mattered to him. "Better?" he said. "I feel like I'm wearing a costume." "You're wearing a decision." "Is that how you see yourself?" I asked. "One long decision?" "I see myself as the consequence to other people's mistakes," he said. "Come." He led me to one of the cars, a black SUV with shaded windows. When I slid inside, the leather was cold beneath my hands. Cassian took the seat beside me. Luca and another man sat in front. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Vitale likes old places," Cassian said. "Estates with history. Houses where other men have killed before him, so he can pretend he's part of something larger than his own greed." He looked out the window as the gate rolled open. "We trace the truck to a private road outside the city. It leads to one such house." "And Eli is there?" "If he isn't yet," Cassian said, "he will be." The car pulled out onto the street. The city slid past us, then thinned, buildings giving way to warehouses, then scrub, then ugly stretches of highway. Gray sky hung low over everything, pressing down. I watched the landscape change and tried not to count the seconds. "You should know something," I said suddenly. Cassian's attention shifted to me. "My handwriting," I said. "On that key tag. It wasn't the first time someone used it." His gaze sharpened. "Go on." "When my father started borrowing from worse people, he asked me for help. Said he needed me to sign some things cleanly because his own signature was too dirty." I swallowed. "He told me it was a formality, a technicality. Said it would keep us safe." "And you believed him," Cassian said. "I wanted to," I replied. "I signed papers I didn't read. Notes, contracts, transfers. I forged things when he asked me to. I thought I was helping us stay afloat." I laughed once, a brittle sound. Really, I was building the rope they'd hang us with. His expression was unreadable. "How old were you?" he asked. 16, I said. 17. He shook his head once. "That doesn't make you guilty. It makes you useful. There's a difference." Tell that to the police, I muttered. I will, he said, if it comes to that. And if it doesn't, then you'll answer to me instead. There was no threat in his tone. That made it worse. The car went quiet for a while. The hum of the tires on the road filled the space between us. I knew a girl like you once, Cassian said at last. I blinked. Like me? Too loyal to her family, too willing to bleed to keep people who didn't deserve her alive. His jaw clenched. She died for it. What happened to her? She chose the wrong side, trusted the wrong promises, believed a man who said he'd protect her if she did something unforgivable. He lied. And you? I asked softly. Did you lie to her too? He looked out the window. I wasn't given the chance, he said. By the time I met her, she belonged to someone else. And when he lost her, he burned half the city trying to punish the world for it. A chill crept over my skin. What was her name? I asked. He almost smiled. You're asking the wrong question again, he said. What's the right one? Whether I intend to let the story end the same way twice. The car turned off the main road onto a narrower one flanked by tall, skeletal trees. Their bare branches reached toward the sky like hands asking questions no one intended to answer. Luca spoke without turning. We're 10 minutes out, boss. The truck's signal stopped at the estate. It hasn't moved since. Any sign they know we're coming? Cassian asked. None so far. No unusual traffic. No calls bouncing off our usual channels. That only means they're being careful, Cassian said. Not that they're ignorant. I pressed my palms against my knees to stop them from shaking. What if this is a trap? I asked. It is a trap, he said calmly. That's the point. You're walking into it, anyway. Of course, they took something of mine. You don't leave that unanswered. The word mine rolled over me like a wave. For a heartbeat, Eli's face overlapped with my own in my mind, both caught in the same net. Listen to me, Mara, Cassian said. When we arrive, you stay in the car, no matter what you see. You move when I say move, and not before. And if they shoot you? I whispered. He smiled, faint and humorless. Then you'll know I wasn't the most dangerous man in the room after all. The trees thickened around us. Through the gaps, I glimpsed the outline of a house on a rise, a sprawling old structure of stone and shadow, its windows dark, its roofline jagged against the sky. It looked like the kind of place where secrets went to rot. The SUV slowed. Another of Cassian's cars eased to a stop behind us. Men slipped out, weapons held low but ready, spreading into the shadows with the unspoken coordination of people who had done this before. My heart hammered against my ribs. Cassian reached for the door handle and paused. He turned back to me. Last instructions, he said. If anything goes wrong, Luca will get you out. You don't argue. You don't look back. You run. I'm not leaving without Eli, I said. His gaze hardened, and when he spoke, the words were not a request. You will do exactly what I say, he said quietly, or you'll make his survival meaningless. The truth of that sliced through my defiance. Fine, I whispered. Just bring him back. His eyes dropped to my hand. He reached out and brushed his thumb once, lightly, across the ring. I don't make promises I can't keep, he said. Then he opened the door. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of wet earth and something older, heavier. The house loomed ahead, its front doors closed, its windows like watching eyes. Cassian stepped out, his silhouette stark against the stone. I followed him with my gaze as he walked toward the estate, men fanning out behind him, every movement precise. I should have stayed in my seat. I watched instead, fingers pressed so hard into the leather that my nails hurt. The front doors of the house remained closed. Too closed. A whisper of unease curled in my gut. "Luca," I said quietly, "something's wrong." He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "They know we're here. That's all." "No." I shook my head. "If they wanted to negotiate, they would show a sign. If they wanted to warn you off, they'd show force. But they're showing nothing. That's not caution. That's performance." "Performance?" "An empty stage," I whispered. "They wanted you to come here, to focus on this. Which means," the realization slammed into me, "which means Eli might not be here at all." And at that exact moment, as if to answer me, my new phone vibrated in my hand, an unknown number flashing on the screen. The phone vibrated again in my hand, insistent, like a pulse that refused to stop. Unknown number. Not from my old contacts. Not from anyone who should have this new device. That left only one possibility. Someone had anticipated exactly what Cassian would do, and they were still 3 moves ahead. I answered. "Mara Hale," a man's voice said. "At last." The sound of him slid under my skin like oil. Smooth, amused, absolutely certain he was in control. "Angelo Vitale," I whispered. Cassian was a dark figure moving toward the estate's front doors, men shadowing him. He didn't look back. "You say my name like a curse," Angelo said. "I suppose in your position I would too." "Where's my brother?" He laughed quietly. "Straight to the point. You really are unlike your father. He could spend hours pretending not to understand the price of his mistakes." "Eli," I said, "if you touch him—" "I already have," Angelo replied calmly. "That is rather the point. You're holding my conversation in your hand, and I am holding yours in mine. Your brother is very persuasive leverage." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Out ahead, Cassian lifted a hand in a silent signal. His men shifted, taking positions. They were about to reach the front steps. "He's not inside that house, is he?" I forced out. A pause. I could almost hear his smile. "No," Angelo said. "Of course not. That house is for Cassian. Your brother is for you." Blood roared in my ears. "What do you want from me?" "Today," he mused, "I want you to watch." "Watch what?" "Watch what happens to men who think they own the city," he said. "There is a debt between Cassian and me. He believes he can collect it with bullets. I prefer something more elegant." My fingers tightened on the phone. "If you hurt him, Cassian will—" "Yes," Angelo said. "He will. That is why I brought you into this. I wanted to see what it takes to crack his composure. You should have seen his face when he walked into that interrogation room to find you already cornered. It was delicious." "Why my brother?" I asked through my teeth. "Why not just take your war to Cassian directly?" "Oh, we are," Angelo said. "But every war needs a symbol. You were the symbol of his arrogance. The girl from nowhere he thought he could pluck from obscurity and bend to his will. The ring on your finger is the flag he planted in your life. Your brother is the price for that flag." Out by the house, Cassian mounted the steps. My heartbeat lurched. "What have you done?" I whispered. "Nothing yet," Angelo said. "The doors are wired. The windows are watched. The air inside that house is very delicate. Any wrong movement, any wrong breath, and—" "Stop!" I snapped. "Stop! Tell me what you want." "I want you to stay very, very quiet," he said. Let him walk inside. Let the house. Swallow him. Once I have confirmation, your brother will live long enough for us to discuss what comes next. You're asking me to let him die. I'm asking you to let the world correct itself, Angelo replied. Cassian Vale is an infection. You know that. You felt it the moment he first put his hand on your life. And if I refuse, my voice shook, then I'll send you another video, he said. It will be shorter, louder, and you will hear the sound a gun makes when it empties the future of the only person who still believes you can save him. Cassian reached the doors. I saw it then, the faint irregularity in the wood around the handle, a newness in the hinges that didn't match the age of the stone. The memory of Angelo's voice describing delicacy. Wired. Do not warn him, Angelo said. Think carefully, Mara. You have already chosen once today, and it cost you your brother's freedom. Choose more wisely now. I stared through the windshield. Cassian stretched out his hand. Cassian! I screamed. He froze. Even at that distance, I saw it, the fractional pause, the tilt of his head as the wind carried my voice. His hand stopped a breath from the handle. Every gun in the courtyard shifted an inch. The world held its breath with me. Mara, Angelo said, his tone suddenly knife-cold. What did you just do? Cassian did not turn to look at me. He lowered his hand slowly and made a small gesture toward one of his men. The man moved forward, dropping to one knee beside the door, scanning the frame with something that flashed faintly in the dim light. He looked up, eyes wide. Boss, he called. There's a pressure contact and... He didn't finish. A single shot split the air. The man jerked once and collapsed, a red bloom spreading across his shoulder. Cassian's men dropped, moving with drilled precision, returning fire toward the tree line. Splinters exploded from the stone. The quiet estate erupted into controlled violence. Of course, Angelo murmured in my ear. He brought his toys, and you warned him. Ah, Mara, you do take after your father in one thing. You cannot resist trying to save the wrong man. Stop shooting, I hissed. Stop this. I'm not the one pulling the triggers, he said. This is the part of the story where the pieces crash against each other. Let them. On the hill, Cassian had moved from the open steps to the side of the doorway, using the stone as partial cover. He fired once, twice, clean shots that silenced 2 flashes from the trees. There was no hesitation in him, no flinch. He moved like the bullets belonged to him. His ruthlessness was not a rumor. It was a language, and he was fluent. Mara, Luca's voice cut across the chaos, sharp from the front seat. Get down! I hadn't realized I'd half risen from my seat. I dropped as a bullet pinged off the hood, tearing a bright silver line through the paint. My breath went ragged. Hot metal, cold fear, the echo of shots. It all blurred into one overwhelming roar. Listen to me, Angelo said calmly, as if we were discussing architecture instead of murder. You have just told Cassian there is something to fear here. He will adjust. He is good at that. It will cost me men. Very well. I expected as much. Then why? Because he is still thinking the way he always has, Angelo continued. He believes this is still about ground and firepower. What he hasn't yet understood is that his true disadvantage is sitting in the back of a car with my voice in her ear. Luca swore, ducking lower. Boss is moving toward the east wall, he muttered into his radio. We've got at least 4 shooters, maybe more. A sharp crack. One of Cassian's men spun and fell. Another dragged him behind a stone planter, blood streaking the steps. I squeezed the phone so hard my hand hurt. "Tell me what you want," I said again. "I won't be used as a weapon by accident." "Oh, you're not an accident," Angelo said. "You're a design. Here is what I want. I want Cassian to know this was your choice." My stomach turned to ice. "No." "Yes," he said gently. "Walk out of that car. Walk up the path. Wear his ring like a promise, and then break it in front of him. Tell him you brought him here on my behalf. Tell him you will give yourself to me in exchange for your brother's life." "That's not true," I whispered. "It could be," he said. "Truth is elastic in times like these. What matters is what he believes. If he believes you chose me, he will break in a way bullets could never achieve, and a broken man makes mistakes. If I do that," I said slowly, "what assurance do I have that you'll keep Eli alive?" "You don't," Angelo replied. "But you never had assurance to begin with. Only hope. At least this way, your hope wears a shape." "You're asking me to destroy him." "I'm asking you to reveal him," Angelo said. "Men like Cassian are never more honest than when they think the person they want has betrayed them." He let that hang between us for a beat. "Or," he added lightly, "you can continue to shout warnings and hope my patience outlasts my curiosity about how your brother screams." The world narrowed to 2 images. Eli's terrified face on the video. Cassian climbing those stone steps, calm in the middle of the storm. "I hate you," I said. "Of course," Angelo murmured. "You should. Hatred is still a form of attachment. Indifference would worry me." The gunfire began to slow. Cassian's men had better angles now, using the estate's low walls and ruined statuary as cover. A body lay near the tree line, twisted at an impossible angle. Smoke drifted thinly on the wind. Cassian himself was a shadow at the eastern corner of the house, advancing along the wall in brief, precise movements. He didn't look toward the car. He didn't need to. He assumed I was doing as he commanded, staying down, staying quiet. He had no idea. "Mara," Luca hissed, "get on the floor. Now." I didn't. I opened the car door. Cold air rushed in, sharp with gunpowder and damp earth. Luca reached back, grabbed at my arm. "Are you insane?" he snapped. "Get back inside." "Let go," I said. He didn't. "Cassian will kill me if I let you walk out there," he said. "He might kill me if I don't," I replied. "And either way, Angelo kills my brother if I sit here and do nothing." The sound of Eli's muffled breathing in the video echoed in my head. I twisted, broke Luca's grip, and slid out of the car. The path to the house felt longer than it had moments ago. Each step weighed twice what it should have. "Ah," Angelo said in my ear. "There you are." The ring on my finger caught the gray light, a small, sharp glint. I had the sudden surreal urge to rip it off and hurl it into the trees. Instead, I tightened my hand, forcing the metal into my skin, a reminder of exactly what I was doing. Men shouted. Somewhere to my left, a body hit the ground. The air hummed with potential violence. I walked. "Don't run," Angelo said. "It looks more theatrical if you walk." "Shut up," I muttered. He chuckled softly. "He is glancing now, you know, trying not to. Failing." I kept my eyes on the stone ahead, on the cracks in the path, on the muddy patch where one of Cassian's men had slid for cover. I felt his gaze before I saw it, heavy, assessing, a new weight on my shoulders. "Mara!" Luca shouted behind me. "Get back!" I didn't. I reached the bottom of the steps and stopped. Above me, near the corner of the wall, Cassian half turned. For the first time since the shooting began, his attention broke from the threat lines and fixed entirely on me. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "Go back," he said. I lifted the phone slightly, just enough for him to see it. "I can't," I said. For a heartbeat, something like understanding flickered across his face. Then it was gone. "What did he say?" Cassian asked. I swallowed. "He told me," I said, "that if you walked inside that house, you'd die." "Then I will not walk inside," Cassian replied, as if discussing the weather. His gaze flicked to the windows, the roof, the tree line. "Is your brother there?" "No," I said. "This is just for you." He absorbed that in silence. Behind my ear, Angelo sighed. "You were meant to keep that part to yourself, Mara." "You wanted honesty," I said. My voice sounded distant in my own ears. "Here it is." "He will not thank you for it," Angelo replied. "Not when he realizes how much more painful the next choice will be." "What choice?" I whispered. There was a pause, brief and theatrical, as if he were savoring the moment. "I was going to wait," Angelo said, "but you've accelerated the scene, so let us adjust. New terms, then. Tell Cassian this. If he does not die today, someone else will take his place. You, perhaps. Or your brother. Or—" He let the sentence trail off, then shifted tone, almost playful. "Ask him about your father," Angelo said. "Ask him how Daniel Hale really died." The name hit me harder than any bullet. "My father overdosed," I said automatically. "We found him at the bathroom floor. The police," Angelo said dryly, "wrote what they were told. You were a good daughter, Mara. You cleaned up after him right to the end. You believed the story they handed you because the alternative hurt too much. But you are standing beside the alternative now. Ask him." Cassian had closed the distance between us in the time it took for Angelo to speak. He dropped from the low wall, landing a few steps above me. Gunfire still cracked in the distance, but the immediate area had quieted. His men had forced the shooters back. He was close enough that I could see the soot smudge on his cuff, the faint line of blood on his jaw that wasn't his. He looked down at me. "What is he saying?" he asked. I raised my eyes to his. "He says," I managed, "this isn't the first time you've cleaned up after my family." A muscle jumped in Cassian's cheek. "More specific," he said. My fingers tightened around the phone. "He says my father didn't die the way I think he did." Silence pooled between us, dark and deep. Cassian's gaze didn't waver. "Turn off the call." "I can't." "You can," he said. "You won't." I stayed frozen. Angelo's voice was quiet in my ear. "If he lies to you now, you will know. If he tells you the truth, you will break. Either way, I win something." "Is it true?" I whispered. Cassian's eyes, always so controlled, held something raw at the edges now. Not guilt. Not exactly. Something colder. "Your father owed me more than money," he said. "He owed me information. He promised names, schedules, codes, everything I needed to bring down a man who had cost me blood." "Angelo?" I said. "Yes." "And?" "He lied," Cassian said. "He fed me scraps. Useless fragments. All the while, he was selling my responses to the other side. He thought he could balance us. Keep both wolves from his door by feeding us each the other's shadow." My vision blurred. "You confronted him," I said. "Yes." "In our apartment," I said. "That night." His gaze flickered, just once. "No, I never crossed your threshold. I met him elsewhere." "Where?" My voice broke. "In one of the old clubs he loved so much," Cassian said. the ones where he could pretend the drinks were still free. "And what happened?" I whispered. "He refused to give me what I needed," Cassian said. "So I broke his hand, his jaw, enough to remind him there were consequences." I flinched. "He left," Cassian continued. "Stumbled out into the night, high on bravado and whatever he'd taken earlier. I assumed he would run for a while, then come crawling back when he realized no one else would take him in. But he didn't," I said. "No." Cassian's face was unreadable. Instead, he was found dead in your bathroom 2 days later. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. "You beat him and let him walk away. That's not the same as killing him." "It is when you know what he will do with the pain," Angelo said in my ear. "Cassian played God with your father's body, and then pretended the overdose was a surprise." Cassian's gaze dropped to the phone at my ear. "Turn it off," he said again. "He's still got Eli," I whispered. "If I cut this line—" "We lose nothing we haven't already lost," Cassian said. "He is controlling you through sound. Deny him that." I looked up at him, tears finally spilling. "You broke my father," I said. "You started the fall." "He set his own path," Cassian replied. "I expedited the inevitable." "That's not an excuse." "It's not meant to be," he said quietly. "It's a fact." Angelo laughed softly on the line. "Do you see, Mara? This is the man you wear on your hand. This is the one you're walking beside." "You're both monsters," I said. "Yes," they answered almost together. Another shot rang out, distant. Someone cursed. The world around us still burned, but the quiet at the center of it felt more dangerous. "New proposal," Angelo said. "Since you are hearing so much truth today, let me offer you a cleaner lie. Leave him. Walk away from that estate. Come with my men when they arrive at the road. Do that, and I will keep your brother breathing long enough for you to see him again." "And if I stay?" I asked. "Then I'll send pieces," Angelo said conversationally. "I find grief sharpens the mind. Perhaps it will sharpen yours too." I met Cassian's eyes. "What does he want?" he asked. "He wants me to choose," I said. "Between you and Eli." His expression didn't change. "There is no choice." "Because you assume I'll pick you," I said bitterly. "Because I will get your brother back regardless," he said. "That is not a belief. It is an objective. The only real choice here is whether you become Angelo's leverage or my ally. You're asking me to trust you after you—" "I'm asking you to pick the devil who keeps his promises," Cassian said. I almost laughed. It came out as a broken sound. "That's what you think of yourself?" I asked. "A reliable devil?" He considered that. "Yes." Angelo sighed. "He will sacrifice your brother if it weakens me enough. You know that, don't you? Look at him. Look how still he is. That is a man who has already decided who is expendable." Cassian stepped one stair down, closing what little distance remained between us. We were almost eye level now. "Mara," he said. My name sounded like a warning, and something else. I realized I was standing exactly between them. One voice in my ear, one body before me. The ring on my finger was suddenly, unbearably heavy. "You want me to be your ally," I said. "Then treat me like one." "How?" he asked. "Let me talk to him," I whispered. "Not as prey, as a problem." A flicker of something passed through his gaze. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said. "Talk." He reached out and, with a slow deliberation that made my heart stutter, pressed his hand over mine, over the phone, not over my skin. His palm trapped the device against my ear. We were both touching the same object that carried Angelo's voice. An ugly triangle. A new kind of leash. "Angelo," I said. "You wanted a call. You have it. Here's my condition." "My dear," he said, delighted. "Now you sound like a Hale. Go on." "You say this is about symbols," I said. "About showing him he can't protect what he marks." "That is part of it." "Then there's no need to kill Eli yet," I said. "A living hostage hurts more than a dead one. Dead is static. Alive is flexible. You know this, or you wouldn't have gone to the trouble of staging that video." "You are not wrong," he admitted. "Then let him live long enough for me to walk through your door," I continued. "You want Cassian broken? Take me from him yourself. Don't do it in the dark, by proxy. Do it openly, publicly, with witnesses on his side and yours. Make it a rupture no one can deny." Cassian's fingers tightened slightly on the phone. His expression remained unchanged. Angelo was silent for a heartbeat. 2. "Interesting," he said at last. "You would walk into my house of your own accord?" "If it keeps my brother breathing, yes," I said. "You want a symbol. I'll be one. But not yet. You touch him before I arrive, and I will make sure the last thing you ever see is how small you really are." Cassian's eyes flicked to mine at that, something like surprise ghosting through them. Angelo laughed, full, delighted. "Oh, you are wasted behind a desk. No wonder Cassian went shopping in your life." "Do we have an agreement?" I asked. A pause. "Very well," Angelo said. "Your brother lives, for now. But symbols require more than words. They require history. I think it's time we completed yours." A chill ran down my spine. "What does that mean?" "It means," Angelo said softly, "someone wants to say hello." There was a rustling, a shift of sound, a muffled voice in the background. Then another, closer. "Who?" I asked, though part of me already knew. The next voice that came through the speaker was rough, familiar, and impossible. "Mara." The world stopped. My legs almost gave out. Cassian's hand tightened, steadying both the phone and, inadvertently, me. I couldn't speak. "Mara," the voice said again, hoarse. "Kitten. That you?" No one had called me that since I was 16. Since I was standing in a kitchen watching my father stack lies like cards. "Dad?" I whispered. Cassian's expression didn't change, but I felt something in him go still in a different way. Not poised for violence. Poised for impact. "Surprised?" Angelo's voice murmured faintly in the background. "You shouldn't be. Men like your father never die. They just change patrons." "Baby, listen," my father said quickly, urgently. "Whatever they told you, it's not what you think. I did it for you. All of it. I made a deal. I got out. The sound of his voice sliced through every scar I'd tried to seal. "You're supposed to be dead," I said. "I buried you." "I know," he said, "and I'm sorry. But this is my chance to fix it. Angelo says if we give him Cassian, he'll keep you and your brother safe. All you have to do is come to us. Leave that man and everything he touches behind." My free hand trembled at my side. Behind us, the estate smoldered. Ahead of us, the future narrowed to a point. Cassian's hand was still over mine, solid, unmoving, the ring a cold circle between my skin and his. My father's breathing rasped on the line. "Please, kitten," he whispered. "Choose us." I stood on the stone steps between a man who had broken my family and a father who had sold it, with my brother somewhere in the dark between them. And I knew that whichever way I moved now, something in me would not come back. My throat burned. "Dad," I said. Tell me exactly what you promised Angelo I would be." Silence crackled. Then, "He promised you to me," Angelo said lazily, cutting across my father's hesitation. "As payment, as apology, as proof he still understands who owns his debts." My fingers curled involuntarily into Cassian's, trapping his hand over the phone. In that moment, I wasn't sure if I was holding on to him or anchoring myself before I stepped away. If you liked the story, drop a comment for part 2, and don't forget to subscribe to Mara's Betrayal.